Chapter 3. Town Crier's Square. Down the dirt road and over the rolling green hills Tom went in a fever of expectation and excitement. By now the sickness he'd experienced the night before had subsided, at least for the most part. The idea of seeing the king and queen again filled his heart with joy, with Queen Zora's face imprinted upon his memory. Unable to sleep, he'd set his barrel bed upright, pocketing one of the apples from the sack for lunch. Then he hoisted himself up on the chains of the barrel winch and escaped through the trapdoor to the outside by pulling out the hinge pins, all before the morning alarm had started squawking. He knew anyhow he was going to be in trouble for leaving the pub when he was supposed to be grounded. So I might as well enjoy it until I'm caught, he thought. He hadn't seen another person for quite some time, but Tom knew he was on the right track by the number of muddy footprints on the ground. I'm late, he thought, quickening his pace. It was not long before he found himself in the middle of a swarm with the masses. A great many market traders had set up shop in the streets at the approach to Town Crier's Square in a bid to recoup some of this year's losses. Tom soon spotted Mr. Green selling his fruit and vegetables from the back of a cart, so he tried to hide by nestling among the crowd. Mr. Green was sure to think he'd stolen the apple from his cart right then and there. No sense in getting into trouble twice for the same apple, he told himself. As luck would have it, Tom spied an opening to a narrow passageway that led out near the square, or so he hoped. Taking his chances, he turned off onto it. Laundry danced in the wind. Echoes bounced off the walls, shading him from the warmth of the golden sun. A chill ran through him as he advanced. Something moved in one of the doorways, something dark and difficult to see. But he'd come too far along to turn back now. He was so close to the square. Creeping forward, he looked into the darkness, and a voice spoke. "Anything to spare, young sir?" said a deep voice. "I have nothing," he began, his mouth going dry in an instant. "Hang about. I have an apple I could give him." He knew he'd be hungry soon, but with nobody else around, he might be robbed of it anyway. So I might as well give it away while he's still friendly, he thought. "I have an apple. I haven't had any breakfast myself, but here," he said, offering it up. First into the light came a large, dirty hand, followed by a large grey beard and mangled hair with antlers sprouting out of the sides of his head. He had clearly fallen on some hard times in his later life, for his clothes consisted of old worn-out leathers with rust lines where pieces of armour were once fixed. A black cape bearing holes hung over his back. "An apple, eh? Thanks, lad," said the beggar. "What kind of man are you?" asked Tom. "Where do you come from?" The words seemed to stick in his dry throat. "I'm a gavier," the beggar replied. "We're men, like, but we've got these antlers and that. They get in the way a bit, to be honest, especially with the women and that, 'cause they've got 'em too, and beards and all. People call me Black Cape. Not sure why," he said with a little twinkle in his eye. Tom smiled. "I'm Tom," he said. "Are you from this land?" The gavier shook his head. "From Glasara, in the far south, where the Arctic grains grow." "Why do you have antlers?" "Well, gavier fawns love nothing better than charging full pelt at each other, so it's for fighting and protection and that. This makes schooling us quite the headache for the teachers, in more ways than one. Those of us that survive this trial by headbutt can live for quite a while, though. Some of us are gentle-mind, you might even say graceful-like. Some of us are so timid we freeze on the spot and get struck down by carts and that, you see, especially at night time." At that moment, a thought struck Tom. "Hang on, it was you, wasn't it?" "Eh?" asked the beggar. "Your antlers. I recognise them. I saw them sticking up in the fields, behind the pub with no name." "Don't know what you're talking about, lad," said Black Cape, taking the apple and spotting Tom's archer's glove. "What's that you've got in your hand, lad?" asked the Gavir. "This thing? It helps me when I'm shooting bottles with my slingshot," replied Tom. Fear bubbled up within him. He fumbled about the empty space where his slingshot usually hung, only it wasn't there. "It must still be in Mr. Green's apple tree," he reasoned. "You're not shooting bottles now, though, are you, lad?" "No. It helps me grip the glasses better as well, you see. It was my uncle's idea. I'm a glass collector in a pub. The one with no name." Black Cape stood up, towering over Tom like a great oak tree. "Tell me the truth, lad," said the Gavir. "Why do you wear that glove?" "Best not make him angry now," he thought. "I have this scar on my finger. I don't remember where I got it. A rat bit it yesterday and opened it up. It hurts, so I wear the glove to protect it." The Gavir thought for a moment. Was the blood a funny colour?" "How strange," thought Tom. "How did this Gavir know that? Perhaps it happens all the time where Gavirs live. Still, it was a bit embarrassing, and if the beggar spread it around town that the glass collector from the pub with no name has an infected finger, it might put people off going, and Uncle Victor couldn't be doing with that." "No, just normal blood. There's nothing special about me," replied Tom. "If your blood's changed colour, you're more special than you know. We'll have to keep on waiting, I guess." "What do you mean?" asked Tom. "Long story, lad. What are you doing up this end of town, like?" "I'm here to see the King and Queen. We've been having a few problems with mice at the pub, like everybody else. I wanted to hear what they had to say." "A young lad like you shouldn't be here. I'm taking you back to the pub right this minute." "You can't tell me what to do. I don't know who you are," said Tom. The Gavir's eyes grew wide. "But I know you, and you shouldn't be here," replied the Gavir. Both boy and Gavir turned as a loud cheer echoed down the passageway. With the beggar distracted, Tom took his chance and ran towards the square as fast as he could. "Wait, lad!" cried the Gavir. "Come back!" Tom re-emerged into the warmth of the golden sunlight. The square was full of more people than he'd ever seen. Everybody was so tall that he couldn't see a thing. One advantage of being small, however, is that you can weave between people and get close to the action. He managed to sneak into the first half of the crowd. He noticed a pair of flaming torches at the corners of the stage, where two modest thrones had been arranged to face the crowd. Guards cleared a pathway for the royal carriage, and a short time later, the carriage door opened, and a hunchbacked old woman, her head covered by a black shawl, hobbled out and made her way across the stage, much to the confusion of the common people. The old woman took hold of one of the flaming torches and threw a handful of twinkling magical powder up and over herself with the other hand, before passing the fire over the sparkling dust as she spoke a spell under her breath. The powder popped and whizzed before the crowd in a dazzling firework display. Then, with a bang and a puff of smoke, the old lady transformed into beautiful Queen Zora. The crowd clapped and cheered. Tom's heart soared upon seeing the Queen bathed in golden sunlight. Children offered her flowers, while the rest of the townsfolk waved their flags and clapped and cheered. Then King Jared emerged from the carriage to join the Queen upon the stage, standing beside her, smiling and waving to the adoring crowd. He was taller than Tom imagined, with a broad chest and a large sword in its sheath hanging down by his side. He was indeed a handsome man, with blue eyes and redness in his cheeks, quite the agreeable face. The town crier brought the cheering to a halt, as the royal couple took their seats and discussions soon got underway. The people of the land truly loved the royal couple, yet it was also a time of unrest.
"What's the meaning of all these mice?"
cried the people. "What do they want?" they continued.
"There's something unnatural about them."
"What's to be done? If it was a dragon we could kill it, but it isn't. These little pests are eating away at us little by little every day. One day very soon we'll wake up and there'll be nothing left," shouted a man from the crowd. "Who's responsible for these vermin destroying all our crops anyway? It never used to be like this, Boden-Rine used to be a fertile land with food aplenty, said another.
Yeah, why do they do it? Said another still. They're coming from the east, from the land of Petrum, like. It's that King Nox's fault, said another.
They know the eclipse is near, said yet another. They say mice and rats can sense when danger's coming. They're always the first to jump ship like. Curious, thought Tom. He'd heard mention of this King Nox chap from some of the pub regulars, but he'd never quite been able to work out why the people blamed him for the mice being over here. He knew that the land of Petrum, at the furthest eastern point of the world, had been the first of the lands to fall into the shadow when the eclipse started. But there were many other lands in the same situation. Why would the King of Petrum have anything to do with the mice destroying the crops in Boden-Rine? He wondered. Pointing the finger of blame gets us nowhere, said King Jared. We must think of the mice as a test, sent to us from the hands, to prepare us for the eclipse, said King Jared. Many in the crowd placed their hands together, looked up to the sky and muttered,
We're fine without the tests, thanks.
The royal couple listened as the list of concerns went on, and the finger of blame increased. Talk to King Nox and get him to explain himself, many demanded. Kill the man, that'll stop him, said some. A short time later, King Jared rose from his chair and raised his sword, a sharpened white blade made from a dragon's tooth. I am proud that my sword, the blade of Zan, has never slain another. Let it remind us all that honest discussion and compromise create greater acceptance and in turn bring a peace that is greater than any weapon. Many clapped their hands in agreement, but not all.
Your good nature will be the death of us all, cried someone from the back of the crowd. You're far too trusting. People are stealing food from our farms and the like, left, right and centre. There'll be a civil war, if nothing else.
Tom glanced around and spotted a pair of antlers sticking up above the crowd.
What are you going to do about it, Your Highness? Shouted another voice.
Tom deepened his way through the crowd in a bid to hide from the beggar. I know that you're angry that this land does not produce as many crops as it once did, but for the moment there is still plenty to eat and trade. I understand that you are concerned about King Nox, but you should know that a healthy trade agreement exists between our lands. Our food for their rock and metal. It's a fair trade. You keep talking about the present, but what about the future? Said another voice. We need help now!
There is one person I know who might be able to help, replied Queen Zora.
Tom tried his best to listen on, tried to tell himself that he felt fine. But that's when it started. The same dizzy feeling from yesterday. A deep stirring from within grew minute upon minute, until his entire soul was under siege. Everything began to spin, and all the while he had to remain calm on the outside.
The man of whom I speak is currently in hiding, continued Queen Zora.
That alchemist fell, you said that last year, called a man from the crowd. What are you going to do about it? Are you any closer to finding him?
Regretfully, no, replied the Queen.
Someone must find this alchemist, or should I say coward, and get him to stop the eclipse. He was the one who stole from the golden sun to make a potion. He was the one who caused the eclipse, so he should be the one to stop it, said a new voice from the crowd.
Well volunteered. Go find the alchemist, said his wife. I'll pack you some sandwiches.
No, not me, the man protested. I've got things to do, things to eat, and things to drink. I can't go galloping off to the far end of the world when other things need my attention. Perhaps His Highness could lead an expedition, said another man in the crowd. Then who would rule this land? Said yet another. I don't think you should volunteer someone else if you're not prepared to go yourself, said the man standing beside him. Nonsense, said the man with pride. I'm a coward. My father was a coward and his father was a coward. And I expect my son to be a coward as well. I'm living proof that you can survive with someone else taking the lead. You're not thinking big enough, said the man beside him. Suppose we all did that. Where would we be then? Dead. All dead. Yes, King Gerard should do it, said some. He can't. Who will bring order to this chaos? Replied others. Queen Zora listened on as the argument went back and forth until she could stand it no longer. She rose to her feet.
I will lead, she said.
This declaration went unnoticed, however, as the very next moment the suns rumbled above their heads.
It's the hands! Cried the crowd.
It was black lightning yesterday and all. Does this mean the black sun's on the move again? Said the recognisable voice of Mr. Green. There's no reason to panic just yet, replied King Gerard, about the mice or the suns. Tom sensed the Gavir standing over him. So close was he that Tom heard the beggar say, There were lightning yesterday, under his breath, as if casting his mind back. Tom turned to look the beggar in the face. He saw panic in the Gavir's eyes. The next moment, the large stag man grabbed hold of Tom's wrist and ripped the archer's glove off his fingers, splitting open the black scab beneath until the black blood started to flow. Let go! Cried Tom. Boom! Went a flash of black lightning across the sky. Boom! And again. Every head turned to look up to the sky. The Queen's mouth dropped open, robbed of breath. All fell still as a cosmic curtain of darkness rolled over the land above their heads like a deadly, silent wave. No! Cried the people. The light! We need the light! Some dropped to the ground as they pleaded. Others screamed to the sky. How are the crops going to grow now? We need the light! They demanded. We need light! Why would this happen? Cried the people. I don't understand it, said others. The potion, said the royal couple to each other. Tom barely had time to notice the eclipse. He was in so much pain, his body could barely contain the fighting inside. His eyes bulging, his mouth gasping, and his hands clawing through his hair and over his body. Tom glanced back up at the royal couple, where he saw King Gerard slip and cut his finger on the blade of Zan. Another flash of lightning rolled across the sky, only this time golden. Tom thought he was going to die, letting out a scream in terrible pain, for now something had taken possession of him. His body was no longer his own. It was only a puppet to some other master. The scream caught the Queen's attention, her eyes searching for the child, scanning the crowd until she spotted him.
That boy there, said the Queen, pointing to Tom.
Tom's head was now spinning faster and faster inside. A cold sweat ran down his forehead, and just when he thought the pain couldn't get any worse, it doubled. Then the world sucked from his eyes, and there was nothing but black, and he fell backwards into the arms of the beggar. End of chapter.